Hello. So if we could teach our clients and partners one thing to improve research outcomes and actionability, it would be that the application of behavioral economics goes beyond the commonly cited System 1 and System 2 dichotomy. It seems like these days we go to a lot of conferences and see a lot of conference papers where people say, okay, let me teach you about behavioral economics, and they sit you down and they show you a picture of a tortoise and a picture of a hare, or a picture of Homer and a picture of Spock, and they talk about, ultimately it all boils down to System 1 and System 2. Well, this model from Daniel Kahneman, which basically posits that the brain is composed of two systems. One is the kind of fast System 1, fast, implicit, more emotive and automatic, and System 2, which is more of what we identify with when we think about thinking, which is slower, rational, more laborious. But this model is just the beginning. So really the application of behavioral economics goes so much bigger than that. So we'd like to engage our audience and challenge them to kind of get it out of their system, as it were, and we'll give them these 5 takeaways. The first is that System 1 and System 2, as they're kind of talked about, is really only the foundation of behavioral economics. Daniel Kahneman and his colleagues used that to convince traditional economists that behavioral economics was real, that we aren't just rational thinking beings as traditional economics has always proposed it. The second takeaway is that System 1 and System 2 actually work together. And it's not, the trouble with thinking about it as kind of two systems and proposing it in that way is that it can lead clients and agencies down routes of application to the market research space that are open to some common problems. The first is that it generates conflation with other kind of dual process models. So it makes people think, oh, System 1 is emotional and System 2 is rational. But the truth of System 1 and System 2 and what we've learned about the brain from behavioral economics is that sometimes our thought processes are perfectly rational. They're just a bit subconscious, or they're quite emotional, but they're still on the surface. They're still laborious. We still kind of pore over them. The second challenge of conflating System 1 and 2 is that this leads to an assumption that market research already assesses System 2, the more laborious, rationalized process of thinking. And that leads a lot of agencies and client teams down the route of looking for methodologies that assess System 1. And that can actually lead to embracing methodologies that haven't achieved sufficient validation. Just because you're getting something different from what you get in direct questioning doesn't mean that you're getting the reality of how people think and feel, and it doesn't mean that you're accessing the subconscious. So we'd like to kind of problematize that challenge within the paper. The third takeaway that we'd like to give our audience is a bit more around the actionability side of things. We'd like to argue that market researchers should focus more on how applied behavioral economics has been utilized across other sectors. Let's learn the lessons from decades of applied behavioral science in other industries. And that really centers around application throughout the process rather than a specific methodology. And that brings me on to our fourth takeaway, which is essentially that when we consider some of the common principles of behavioral economics in our methodology design and in our research execution, we can actually overcome some common research biases. So we can incorporate these learnings in the way that we design our studies in a really simple and actionable way, without needing a new method to kind of access a different system. The fifth and final takeaway that we'd like to convey in our paper is really the value of behavioral economic analysis in the research analysis and recommendation phase. And this is where we really feel like behavioral economics has the power to supercharge a market research project. So using some of the common observations and frameworks that have been collated from behavioral economic experts across sectors for decades, and using the observations that we have for market research projects to identify some clues into what might be the underlying cognitive processes. And then as a result, what are some of the validated nudges and routes and strategies to actually change behavior that are correlated with those specific biases that were observed in your research? And we feel this is a really powerful way to harness the power of behavioral psychology in the pharma market research environment. So we'd like to challenge attendees at PMRG Institute to really get it out of their system and use these more validated applications of behavioral economics.